Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tess Woltenberg if you don't know me yet, and on this channel I share a lot of ideas around sustainability, zero waste, self-care, intentional living, and all of those things that I feel go very much hand in hand. So make sure to check out my other videos if you haven't already, and subscribe if you haven't, and very welcome if you're new here. I hope you want to stick around. I got a really interesting question when I did a Q&A on my Instagram stories a while ago, and it was about balancing studies and entrepreneurship and having children. And I want to say, first of all, I'm not an expert in this area. I've failed many times, I've planned in a really bad way, but I also think that's how you learn. So I think everyone has to try what works for them, and you have to try what works for you and your family. But I want to share some experiences and ideas and things that I've come up with that has worked for us. So first of all, I want to share my situation. Right now, I'm a master's student. I will graduate this summer if everything goes as planned. So I've been studying, for this period, I've been studying for two years on an advanced level. And I'm studying here in Lund. We have kindergarten clothes, so in that way it's very practical. I don't have to work in another city, I don't have to travel a lot. I only travel to Malmö most of the time for meetings, or I have sometimes I have conferences in Stockholm, for example, but most of my work is in the same town, and we don't have to travel a lot inside this city either. So we have very good conditions in that way. I also have a husband and a partner, so we share the workload. I'm not a single mom. Of course, that makes my situation easier in many ways, since we split the workload, and we drop off the kids together, and we share that responsibility. And when it comes to my business, I work mostly from home. I have some meetings in other places, but my main working area is my home, and I work a lot digitally, so I have a lot of flexibility. But of course that also means a lot of own responsibility, and of course that means I have to combine it with my studies and plan my own time. For me, that works quite well. I've always been like that. I work very good when I get to plan my own time. I have some days where I'm very productive, some days when I'm not as productive. Some days when I want to focus solely on one thing, and some days where I'm feeling good, you know, going between different tasks and between the rational and the creative, and yeah. I work differently during different days and during different periods, so for me that has always been working quite well. But then of course there are things you can't plan for. There was 1 month during 2019 in March where we had sick children for a month, like non-stop. We have 2 children, and sometimes they get different diseases and they bring them home, and when one of them is well, they get the other stuff. So it's just like, that was a big mess, and I couldn't plan for that. Everything was on hold, and the stressful part about planning your own time is that there's no one in there stepping in for you when you can't do things. But what I try to do then is to try to narrow it down to what is most important right now. If it's this day or this week, what do I have to do first? And be good enough about it. You will not be able to do everything 100% as a parent. At least not if you want to be a master's student and run your own company and have children like I do. So I think you have to lower your standards, and also realize that sometimes I think that's a good skill, to be able to be like, okay, I finished this. It's not 100% perfect, but I finished it on time. I handed it in. I did deliver the thing I was supposed to be delivering. And for me, that was a really important thing, to lower my standards, because I've been a person who has always been very perfectionistic. Is that even the right word? Sometimes I stumble upon the English since it's not my main language. But yeah, I've always wanted to do everything perfectly, and it hasn't really been working well for me because it's been a big stress, and I have probably managed, but I've been putting very high expectations on myself. And I think working with that, like trying to prioritize what is actually important. What is actually important for this client, what is actually important for the university, what is actually important to me and for my business. And maybe the important thing in some cases is to just hand something in. During my bachelor years, I didn't have to do any re-exams, but during this master's I've had some struggling with that. So I have had 2 re-exams because I just didn't get my life together, but I did manage, and even if they were turned in late, I did manage at some point. And I think that's an experience too. But what I'm trying to do in my business is to have deadlines that leave as much room as possible for life to happen. So I'm trying to do things that I can prepare in advance. For example, if I'm going to post something on social media, I try to have a couple of days where I can take the pictures and edit the pictures. Since I take most of the pictures at home, it's not going to be picture perfect all the time, and I try to take all those pictures at the same time. Also for my blog and for my channels, I take most of the pictures I need during 1 day or 2 days, and I style it and I make it look nice, and then I just have them on my computer and prepare the posts. I prepare them in my notes, so I have everything ready. So of course there is usually a deal about when I post it, but I don't have to do all of those things at that time. And that's also, when it comes to content, it works really well for me to do it when I feel creative, when I feel like I can do it in the best way, when I have a good day, when I'm well rested and I have a lot of inspiration. And sometimes I prepare 10 posts, either blog posts or YouTube videos. Usually I do YouTube videos like right when I post them, but you get the point that I think batch working is a really great thing. If you have creativity, use that, do as much as you can. And for me, it works very well to write 5 blog posts at one time instead of doing one every day. So that's what I'm trying to do, and like focusing on one thing at a time, even if it's that is for an entire day or just for 2 hours, but to take one thing at a time. Because one thing I've realized that is also a challenge when you have different responsibilities is that, you know, you're always somewhere else. So try to either focus on your studies or focus on the company, and also focus on your family when they're at home. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm still struggling with this. I don't have any perfect answers. These are just my reflections and experiences and things that I've thought about. But I think you also have to learn as you go along. It's like you're going to plan in a bad way. You're going to fail. I don't look at failure in that way, but yeah, you will fail, and that's a way to learn. That's like, okay, I planned really badly this time. I realized sometimes that my plan worked, but if something unexpected happened, then my plan just fell apart. And what you have to do then is just to like take a step back and be, okay, what is actually the most important thing? When I have a bad day, I usually write up two of the most important things. And sometimes I do 10 more, but if I have a bad day, I focus on those 2 things. I write them on a list, and it's still a good feeling to just check those things off. Because when you stop putting too many expectations on yourself, I think you actually perform better too. When you feel like you have, you know, this really, really long list of things you have to do. Because I think that's, when you talk about slow living, intentional living, and also sustainable entrepreneurship, you have to be mindful about the fact that a lot of these things we have to do are actually not things we have to do. Like, focus on the most important task. Maybe it's the task that actually gives you money. Maybe it's what's actually most important on your channels. You don't have to post all the time about everything. Focus on what's your core, what's the most important thing, and also what is most important thing happening right now. Do I have to respond to this email to be able to do something tomorrow or the day after that? Then maybe that's something you have to do. But if it's not something that is time limited, it may be able to wait until your kids are better if they're sick, or, you know, if something happens. So yeah, I feel like this is a lot of rambling. But if you're a student or an entrepreneur or someone struggling with planning your own time, I would love to hear your experiences. Maybe you're in a transition between different types of jobs and you're struggling with planning your time. Please share in a comment below and create a discussion, because I think this is a really interesting topic, and I think it's something that a lot of people are struggling with, no matter how your life looks. So I think it's really important to talk about it, and even though our experiences may not be applicable to all of our lives, it's still something that is good to talk about and get advice around and be like, okay, maybe I can try this that works for someone else. And please write questions if you want to know something more from me and my experience, even if I'm still learning, like I said. And yeah. Oh my god.